Welcome to this video, where we will talk about the movie Peaky Blinders, The Immortal Man. We will begin by exploring the movie's storyline, summarizing its plot, and discuss the cast and characters. Then we will take a closer look at the film production details and box office performance. Finally, we will share review and audience reaction to give you a well-rounded perspective. Let's get started. Rebecca Ferguson, a dress professional, returns in the Peaky Blinders universe after Immortal Man debut. Following the March 20 global release, The Immortal Man star Rebecca Ferguson shared that she leaving the door at the last likely open for a renew with the Peaky Blinder franchise. Ferguson's Wu embodies the engagement Colo Creek in the new Netflix new play, one of the new addition to the Peaky Blinders world, but she not new to the franchise. Colo, a plump readers, is the sister of the Tommy Shelby, Cillian Murphy, former film the Zeta Kako, also played by the Forsons, addressing the spectacular about her the further with the Peaky Blinders. Ferguson was the measures. I never say no, Ferguson shared with the Radio Times, keeping coping co, as she was the princess, while the Colo introductions and the inclusions in the Immortal Man was and the important pieces of the story. Ferguson explained, I think that the Colo was so essential for this film, but I did not always feel that a characters need to have a continue we can be the satisfied with not being the satisfied. I never say no. Ferguson shared with the Radio Times, keeping co as she was the possessed, while Colo introductions and the inclusion in the Immortals Man was an important piece of the story. Ferguson explained, I think that the Colo was so essential for this film, but I don't always feel that our characters need to have a continuations we can be the satisfied with not being the satisfied. As a significant addition to the Peaky Blinders story, Foreign Scalo has made an impact on what the futures of the long-time series could look like. All thought the film stand on its own. A continue of the story does not seem like it's the entirely out of the pieces for the hugely successful Netflix franchise. While no plans have been confirmed regarding another film sequel series or any the spin-off, Ferguson's comment suggests that a return is not off the table, thought it's the four. From a guarantee, it's clear that the actress is happy to never as far as the Peaky Blinders goes, as the team look ahead to what could be next. Ferguson seems to be the open to a returns. Within The Immortal Man, Ferguson has to be the balanced flashback work as the Zelda with the present day moment as the Colo, Wu plots, and the pushes Ducky Salisbury to climb his father's place. While Ducky does not follow along, he ends the film with her by his side as the new head of the Shelby clan, as the only person who can say, stop, and he listens. Colo has a huge presence with the claw positions to be a part of the Peaky Blinders moving forward. It appears possible that the deposits for Gissin's co-answer her characters will be a pieces of the franchise as its move forward. The Immortal Man was able to present a financial new word for the show long time universe, and though plans for the what next have not been revealed, it seems clear that the Peaky Blinders is not going anywhere. Netflix new follow-up to one of TV's best crime thriller series of all time become instant streaming sensations. Peaky Blinders, The Immortal Man brought Cillian Murphy, Tommy Shelby back to the screen globally, becoming an instant hit for the Netflix. Worldwide, the Peaky Blinders follow-up has scored a spot in the streamers' top 10 indie memories continues. As of the writers, the Tom Hyper directed film is sitting at the number 2 in the United States. The original BBC series run from the 2030 to 2022, and the features a star-studded cast included the likes of the Tom Hardy and the Anaya Taylor-Joy. The Immortal Man brings back creator Stephen K. Knight to pen the script. Set in the 1940s, the film followed Tommy living out a self-imposed explain after the death of his brother. Meanwhile, his son Dunky Barry Cannon has taken over as the leader of the Peaky Blinders. Other cast members included Rebecca Ferguson and Tim Roth, with the Sophia Riddles, Ned the Denfrey, Peaky Lee, and the Stephen Scrum returning from the original series alongside Murphy. Though following up a successful television show is a difficult task, K. Knight seems to have the passed that test with the flying colors. Over on Rotten Tomatoes, The Immortal Man boasts a 92% criticized scores and the 89% audience scores. This is only slightly below Peaky Blinders' 93% score. The movie theatricals window, though the limited to a one-weekend run in the United Kingdom, is speculated to be successful, with the deadline reporting its place second on the weekend of release. Following the Immortal Man's climactic ending, the franchise appeared to be moving in a new direction's contact on the Tommy's distance and set in the 1950s period to the film's release. K. Knight had revealed to it as the fighting and the first chapter. He then concluded as long as there and the episode for it, and I have got stories to tell, then why not? This sets up the upcoming series within the Peaky Blinders universe, which will see Keoghan as the tech taking the Renview from the Murphy as the Tommy. Peaky Blinders The Immortal Man cast guided every new returning characters. Peaky Blinders The Immortal Man features a variety of the returning faces alongside some major new addition to the factual universe. Nearly 4 years after the Peaky Blinders Season 6 ending, Tommy Shelby as finally returns to the screen, but the iconic characters is a lot different this time around, as almost decide has the passed in the timeline since he last appeared. In addition, a new look versions of the Peaky Blinders has also immigrated, and it's the running bridegrooming with the Tommy son leading the gang, with the younger blood taking over the crew. It was the inevitables there, the would-be fresh conflict involving new few. And in addition, a new look versions of the Peaky Blinders has also immigrated, and it's running Birmingham with the Tommy son leading the gang, with the younger blood taking over the crew. It was the inevitable there would be the fresh conflict involving new few, and while the movie certainly has a different vibe, it the undoubtable compares with the some of the Peaky Blinder best seasons, given that the numerous spin-offs have been announced. Peaky Blinders The Immortal Man ending could give an idea about which characters may return for these the upcoming projects and which one won't. Fortunately, with the next Flash movie is the flu with the incredible actors. Given that the memory spin-off have been announced, Peaky Blinders The Immortal Man ending could give an idea about which characters may return for these upcoming projects. And while once won't, fortunately, the Netflix movie is filled with the incredible actor and the performance, all of who help give the Britain's crime drama the perfect returns in the diverse. Cillian Murphy as the Tommy Shelby. Actor Cillian Murphy was born in the Douglas country Cork, Ireland. His first major role came in the 2002 film 28 Days Later, where they play a survivor of the zombie apocalypse, and the Murphy is the rumor to return for the 28 years later next outing, should it happen. Since then, the actor has gone on to have an extremely successful career. He started in the survival acclaim movie like The Inceptions and The Batman Begins, and he won his first Academy Award for Best Actor in 2023 after starting in the Christopher Nolan Oppenheimer's. The pair have worked together 6 times, with the 4 of these films winning Oscar. Characters in the Peaky Blinders. Cillian Murphy plays Tommy Shelby, the middle brother and the leader of the Peaky Blinders from the Brigham's Tommy is known for his the incredible intelligence, his the strength, brilliance, and his the willingness to do anything to gain power for himself and his family. However, with the Immortal Man taking place during WW2, Tommy has changed quite substantially and is still coming to returns with his the past. That said, he is one against the heart of the Peaky Blinders last conflict, returning to his old ways in a fashion that will satisfy some of the franchise's biggest fan. Shelby runs as the ad Shelby Thorns. Actress Sophia Runners was born in the Gland Riddle's breakthrough role came in the 2013s when she begins playing as Shelby in the Peaky Blinders. Since then, the Riddle has. Actress Sophia Rundle was born in England. Rundle's breakthrough role came in 2013 when she began playing as Shelby in the Peaky Blinders. Since then, the Rundles has started in the survival acclaimed British show such as The Bodyguard, Gentleman Jack, and The Next. Character Sophia Riddles is the reprising his role as the Ed Shelby thrown in the Peaky Blinders movie. Ada is one of the most prominent members of the Shelby family aside from the Tommy himself. Though her the relationship with the Peaky Blinder has fluctuated over the years, Deposit not being involved quite as much in the action. Ada has a significant role in The Immortal Man, and her the presence is a driving force to some of the key plot points, making her written by the for one of the biggest for Netflix hit film. Rebecca Ferguson has the Callow. Actor the Rebecca Ferguson was born in the Stockholms. Stephen the Ferguson's breakthrough role was in the 2015 Mission Impossible's Rouge Nations, where she started opposite Tom Cruise as the Elias Faust, though the Ferguson's has only recently received international acclaim. The actor has had a long and impressive career before stepping into the limelight. She has also grown into a trend star since 2015 as she has taken on role in the massively successful film like The Danube and the show like The Silo. Character Rebecca Ferguson takes one of the role of the Callow, the twin sister of the Zelda. Like her sister, Callow is a spiritual Ronnie character and even racetrack, making her role all the more interesting rather than the Callow being Tommy love interest in the Immortal Man. She acts more as a spectral guide determined to ahead the lead characters. Barry Kengo as the Deck Shelby. Actor Barry Keoghan was born in the Dublin's Ireland's Kango breakthrough role came in 2017, The Killing of a Scared Deer, where he played Martins. Keoghan and generated quite a bit of the paroxysms within the Ireland period to that the movie Thor 2017 introduced him to international fame. Since then, Kango has quickly become one of the most popular young actors in the film industry. He earned an Oscar nomination for the Best Supporting Actor for his role in The Banshees of the Inisherin, and they enjoy quite a bite of the fame from his leading role in The Celebrant. Character Barry Keoghan has a substantial role in the Peaky Blinders The Immortal Man as he started as the Tommy Duke along with the franchise. He is arguably the film's most important character with the plot largely centering around him with a chip on his shoulder. He runs the new Peaky Blinders with the complete disagree for the Liu or the local community. Tom Tooth as the John Beckett's. Actor Tom Roth was born in the Lamth, London, England. Roth breakthrough role in the Quiet Transition's 1992 film The Reverse Dogs, where he played Mr. the Orange. That role not only wrote the novelist, it also started a long-lasting relationship between the actor and the Transitions. Roth has started in several other the Transition films, such as The Full Nations and The Hateful Eight. Beyond that, the practical director Roth has made a name for himself in the both movie and show, and he recently started in the MCU, though she hit a talk at the Love, where he played the Ambitions. Characters Having had plenty of the experience playing antagonists in the past, Tim Roth taking on the role of the Peaky Blinders' last villain John Beckett, he is a Nazi sponsor working on the beginning to war for the Germany needing the Breton-based gang help to carry out his plan, hence going to the extreme to the make it happen. Actor Ned Danny was born in the Ireland. Danny breakthrough role was in the 2011 The Northlands where he played Tommy alongside a star-studded cast that included Olivia Colman, Eddie Murs, and more. Since then, the Destiny has mostly focused on the television role. Characters and the Peaky Blinders Ned Danny Plains, Charlie Strong, one of the Shelby family, son biological uncle. He raushly worked at the docks and with the Shelby Harris along Crowley and often play a part in the longs of the gang criminals. Deadline as an uncle, Charlie offered advice to the Tommy frequently, though the younger than the seldom listened to it. Actor Peaky Lee was born in the Belfast, Northern Ireland. Lee's first major role was in the Peaky Blinders when he first deposited the characters Johnny Dogs in 2013. Since then, Lee has continued to play Johnny Dogs for over a decade and he has also appeared in the version television series. Characters in the Peaky Blinders, Peaky Lee plays Johnny Dogs are Ronnie cousins and the employees of the Tommy Shelby. Johnny Dogs is one of the key connection between the Peaky Blinders and the Shelby family. Rennie relations as he helped secure a major partnership. Vi Johnny Shelby, he remains Tommy most faithful friend and the ally in the Immortal Man. Stephen Scrum as the Hidden Stitch. Stephen Graham was born in the KKB Lancashire, England. Graham breakthrough role came in 2006 when he played Combo in DC England. Prior to that, however, Combo always been gaining notoriety for the Guy Ritchie's 2000 film Stench, which he started in the alongside Jason Statham. Character in the Peaky Blinders, Stephen Graham plays head in stage, a dogward union leaders. Graham is repairing the role which he being portraying in series 6 of the show stage once again act as a loyal ally to Tommy, willing to help him in the even most auditions of the plans deposit being aware of the risks involved. Actor Jay Loiseau was born in the England. Leclerc's most notable role to date has been as the Time Dark Acre Robin in the live-action DC Comics show Titans. While the Leclerc has not had many projects beyond Titan, he has the instantly alright appear again in the DCEU as the reluctant members of the gang who is patterned up at the wings of the Batman. Characters Leclerc plays agents in the Peaky Blinders films. Like a right-hand man in the gang Newty, interactions he is smart, confidently spoken and also climb in the face of the conflict, knowing when the right time to be the aggressive is, alongside when it time to the diffuse any tensions. Land Peak will reprise his role as the Crowley in the Peaky Blinders movie. Crowley is a stable hand and the Fury bot Stewart who work from the Shelby, though he is not the brightest Curie. Curie is the student with the horses and has proven himself a valuable member of the Peaky Blinder in the past. Casper Hilton Hall. Casper Hilton Hall played Carol Thorns, the son of the Ada Shelby in the Peaky Blinders, the Immortal Man. The character was previously played by the Keoghan Gatsby, but giving the timeline jump between the Session 6 and the Netflix movie. Carol is the significant order and the Francis Spotif of his mother. Casper Hilton Hill. Casper Hilton Hill. Casper Hilton Hills played the Carol Thorne, the son of the Ada Shelby in the Peaky Blinders, the Immortal Man. The character was previously played by the Keoghan Gay Brothers, but then the timeline jumped between the season 6 and the Netflix movie. Carla is the significant older and the frequently sportive of his mother. Why Peaky Blinders, the Immortal Man T. Daly, Cillian Murphy, Theo the Mummy shall be written explained by the creators. According to the Peaky Blinders creator Stephen K. Knight, the long-awaited continue of the story, Peaky Blinders, The Immortal Man is the shaping up to be the more than just a nostalgia project for the loyal fans. Peaky Blinders, The Immortal Man is a sequel to the hit Netflix series Peaky Blinders. The film will returns a time jump taking place several years after the events of the Session 6. Tommy Shelby, portrayed by the Cillian Murphy, will return to the confirmed his the family and the gothic events that have taken place since the last season. The movie is also set by the conclusions of the Tommy story as well as set up for an the United sequel story which will be produced by the Netflix and the BBC. Peaky Blinders The Immortal Man is a sequel to the hit Netflix series Peaky Blinders. The film with the feature a time jump taking place several years after the events of the Session 6. Tommy Shelby, portrayed by the Cillian Murphy, will return to the confirmed his the family and the chaotic events that have taken place since the last sessions. The movie is also set by the conclusions of the Tommy story as well as set up for and the United sequel series, which will be the produced by the Netflix and the BBC. In an interview with the screenwriter Lime Crawley, K. Knight, she lied on the how Tommy will reinterpret the story in a way that the meets viewers' expectations and the make scenes for the franchise as a whole. The creator explained that the film was never intended to simply revisit family events for the task force and the survivor. While iconic elements such as the crescent pub and the effect of the Tommy transformations remain a part of the Peaky Blinders, the Immortal Man story, the driving force behind the narrative is very directions. Central relationship included those involving Doug, Shelby, Barry Kong, and while iconic elements such as the Gatian's pub and the effective of the Tommy transformations remain a part of the Peaky Blinders, the Immortal Man story, the driving force behind the narrative is very different. Central relationship included those involving Doug, Shelby, Barry Kong, and the Tommy as well as John Beckett Tamroth turn the plot into something that is the entirely its own, giving the film a sense of the purpose instead of becoming settled. Rather than picking up the immediately where the series left off, Peaky Blinders, The Immortal Man show are completely different versions of the Tommy audience will see and the audience. Rather than picking up immediately where the series let off, Peaky Blinders, The Immortal Man show are completely different versions of the Tommy audience will see and the older person survivor affected by the time and the isolations. However, external presence from him back into the world that he left behind. Complication tied to the fortune's money and the state of the world act as the elastic that pull him back into actions. I wanted to set it up so that I could make it not complicated to do the things that I wanted to do and not make it feel the deliberate. The story of someone who was the withdraw from the world, who then as a concave of the global situations with that the foreign's money and as a conveyance of his the relationship with his son is the forced to come back. The fact is he's coming back to the world that he have established in the series. So there always a joy as an audience member when you see someone in the foreign moments established in the series. So there always a joy as an audience member when you see someone is the foreign moment in the gunfighter stepping his gun back on. What we want to do was to delay that the moment. It's like the pulling back a bow and the arrow, just keep pulling it. Bang, let it go. Murphy himself also spoken about how the time jump affected his the character relationship with his son Duke. The actor explained how Tommy Stenchel walked out on his the cliff in the Peaky Blinders season 6 and as a result the run you won't be a pleasant one. He added that the Kong performance was the Incredibles and that he really managed to the portray the unpredictable of his the characters. Screen rant, it's been some things We have seen the word of the Peaky Blinders, but especially Tommy and the Deck relationship. The last time we saw them, Deck was young and he was navy. He gets that whisper from the Tommy at the end of the season 6. Could you talk to me about the establishing the camarads, the disfaction between the Doug and the Tommy with the Barry in this movie, and do you think that the whisper left a protagonist impact on view Doug would become? Cillian Murphy, on that's great questions. I think you put your finger on it with the technifications. I mean, no, so is it. Tommy has the abandoned his son, and he's the just returned from the flood, and he's just the rating around that the house, and he isolated himself, and he's the spring himself out of the control, emotional and the psychological. What wonderful about when they do meet. It just is the explanation and the valiant retardations in a big back pen, and in the returns of myself and the Barry. Luckily, we have known each other for a long time, and we have worked reductions in a big back pen, and in the returns of myself and the Barry. Look likely we have known each other for a long time, and we have worked together before. He just gotten better and the better since I worked with him when he was a young fool on the Drank Creek many years ago. He has that the unpredictables and that the charisma when you put a camera on him. So that was our first day on set. In fact, that big huge fight, that's a set tone. The flagship show the director Tom Hyper, who helmet survival episode in season 1, is the returning to the director Peaky Blinders, the Immortal Man. He said that he was happy to be back for the film and that it felt like the was rejoined his family. Hyper added that because of the period relationship he had with the film cast, it made it the very easy for him to jump back in. Screen rant, Tom, it had been the main scenes. You have been in the director's chair for the Peaky Blinders. So many of the characters that you last directed are long gone by the time that the Immortal Man came around. What was it like to get back into the world of the Peaky and the play with a whole new plenty? Tom Harry, that's it true, but I think that the probably the enhanced the characters, the whole things revolving around, of course, it's the Tommy and the Cillian Murphy performance at Tommy. So actually coming back felt very natural just because I did work with the Stephen and with the Callan all those years ago. Coming back felt the rejoining. Coming back felt like the rejoining friends and the colleagues and family that he impelled us to get back into that the rhythms really quickly. But it was also a really interesting things working with the Callan for the example. He is older, he is more mature. Enable us to get back into the rhythms really quickly, but it was also really interesting things. Working with the Callan, for example, he is older, he is more mature, he has gone through more of his the life. He was and the Oscar that the challenge someone stables. He is still the same actor and same person, of course, but he has such the strength now. He has such control of his the craft. It was a very interesting experience, but the lovely love to be able to do. Not many people get to see you work on the same things 30 years later. Peaky Blinders The Immortal Man will be the release on Netflix on the 20 March 2026. Peaky Blinders The Immortal Man review. Tommy Shelby returns in the plot a most visual stunning ghost story to the end and the epic era. Tommy Shelby returned from his the self-imposed isolations after survival years to face the dark demon of his the own creation as the triumphantly born, chilling and the entertaining as it is to see the Tommy return to his the abandoned realm as the Gispy King, the big swings, the Peaky Blinders, the Immortal Man takes with his the deeply haunted, rocking our left needing more. Picking up survival years after Peaky Blinders season 6 the finals, which the concluded with the Tommy saying his the farewell to say the Shelby family and the naming his the successor before leaving the Birmingham. The Immortals Man finds Tommy living in the isolation writing a book with the only John Starks as is the company throughout these times. Tommy has still been the continuing with the being a crude man, unable to escape the ghost of those who death He blames himself for the continue to hunted him at the every turn. In addition to those that the originally sent him into the isolation season's K night, the Immortal Man adds in the some surprising new spectral, both dead and the alive that the weight heavy on the Tommy conclusions. However, the Immortal Man often stumbles to find the space to re-intense on however these regardings impact Tommy and the few returning original characters when the heaviest hitting blow are the thorn. The impact is often undetermined by the Tommy himself also being a quiet, silent ghost of who he once was, as well as the uneventually surviving to balance the impact of these the regards on the Duck, a character we hardly knew in the series and they still barely explore. Impact is the often undetermined by the Tommy himself, also being a quiet still ghost of who he once was. He was already unevenly striving to balance the impact of these targets on the deck, a characters we darkly knew in the series and still barely explored below the surface in the most. The Immortal Man struggled to the balance its new cast and the conflict with the Tommy and the Peaky Blinders, equally impactful history. The Tommy Hypers director The Immortal Man plays more like a visual stunning extent additional episode of season 6, but they struggle to balance the weight of the interior original series, his story and the blender with the final season's later characters, introductions, the movie brand, new villain and the anti-hero and the new tragedies that they happen off screen at the same time. The intention of the Immortal Man being the final word on those areas is the undercut by some many in critical loss and upset us from the end of the season 6 being completely ignored or the register to a season thought. The Immortal Man is the stronger word daddling with the broad stalk of the Tommy past and the his demons, catching up with his the with family members like the Sophia Riddles, impeccable at a throne, grounding him the emotionally and they bring him back to the reality society. This is most effective in the first act, which they primarily survive as a hunting, emotionally resort ghost story before the Tommy is the call upon he help save his own deck from the truly becoming the monster he'd run him into. The dominated themes often the suffering from the sins of his father is the pomegranate and the fitting from the Tommy story, but is not completely effective, giving Dak and the Tommy relationship hardly even the exact period to the Immortal Man. The courier instead of the plot is the series. United that the darkness instead of the Tommy was the transformed to the Duck and the conflicts of Tommy abandoning him with a kingdom to the return on his way, and the key original Shelby family being absent. Barry Keoghan does experiential wealthy portraying the angry and the unpredictable that have defined Doug after being the abandoned. However, while Barry Keoghan does experiential will the retrying the anger and the unpredictable that they have defined Doug after being the abandoned. The focus need to return him to inner, complaining, emotionally convincing characters like the Michael Scree or even Tommy other sons, Kerala giving rather than the flash out histories. Want to fully dare to make the climax reasons as the strong trait the Immortal Man required. This issue also translated to him rather new Wilson Rockert and the Rebecca Fergens Callow who played different role in the getting Tommy to returns to the Britons. Rebecca Blinder has a long history of the engrossing complex Wilsons, but the other characters don't get much room to go beyond the surface conflict of the Nazis sympathizing using the daddy issue and the power hungry drive against him to destroy Britons. Simply, there are a lot of the unaffected potential in the Poison's role, which is well cast and the performed but left feeling underdeveloped. The Immortal Man Devastating's instant final act did not fully land with its the emotional stacks. This all the culminates in the family Peaky Blinders traditions of an expressive actions fill the climax, but it's felt feeling more flat than the such heavy blood developments that This all the climates in the family Peaky Blinders traditions of and the explosive actor film climax, but it's the felt feeling more flat than such heavy ball developments that the Stephen K. Knight introduced deserve. The final twist and the trends play on them that have defined Tommy Shelby and the Peaky Blinders since the premiere in 2030, yet the emotional shakers never quite reached their the required heights due to the lack of the established flow, yet the lovable group like the Session 1 punch to the things them on. The immortal man survived from the simultaneously feeling the overstuffed and the undercooked and may have the benefited from the TV format. The immortal man suffered from the simulated feeling overstuffed and the undercooked not bring enough of its the entirely impactful history into play while being unable to strike the right balance with its new and nourish characters. Perhaps the immortals may have benefit from the TV format instead. With a 6 hour long episode, the narrative could have more properly drawn out of the tensions, giving it the ensemble room too. The immortal man suffers from the simulated feeling overstuffed and the undercooked and not being enough of its the entirely impactful history into play while being the unavailable to strike the right balance with its the new risk. It's the characters, perhaps mortals many may have benefited from the TV format instead. With the 6 hour long episode, the narrative could have more properly drawn out the tensions, giving it the ensemble room to the breath and the react to the target's experience and the dark dim lines to the faces, fleshed out villains and the potential new characters celebrities. Experience and the dark dim lines to the faces, flesh out villains and the potential new characters, liabilities and the affordable more spaces to develop the intercomplex between Tommy Doug and the Callow. The Immortal Man is and the executed tribe to Tommy Shelby greater legacy take with the beloved Peaky Blinders calling card. The story beats me further giving the massive swings the film takes, but it still feels incredible to be back in the world of the Peaky Blinders and the gritty boarding shows of the China Murphy Tommy Shelby as he did in the series. Murphy commands even since he is with the same masterful grave and the trend. Target presents that they turn Tommy into one of the most complaining anti-heroes in the TV history. Ultimately, the Immortal Man is and the last best when the following the original series, classic best Tommy proving to his enemies or those who underline him why he has the ratings most fearsome gangster of Swiss BV order of the Ultimately, the Immortals Man is set is the best when the following the original series classic piece Tommy providing to his the enemies or those who the undermines him be he was the Brigham most the fearsome gangster Swiss by order of the Peaky Blinders after the gangster curse troubles of slow potion sequence showing of the gang impeccable fashions and the onion focus on the Ranwing cultures and the Shelby family. Spectral twist reveals about the loyalties, some light humor from the family faces around smell health or the commercially absurd fight scenes and the incredible beautiful the cinematography from start to finish. The Immortal Man is a beautiful traverse to one of the TV greatest gangster Cillian Murphy and me devising run into the original series and the Tommy Shelby events ending lengthy. The Netflix outing the strength also lay in the Immortal Man being a beautiful trip to one of the TV greatest gangster. Cillian Murphy, Amy devising run into the original series, and Tommy Shelby ever enduring lengthy. They're not the chills introducing moments when the Tommy finally returns to the writings and the faces the people of the smell health and the most protagonist embodies. This is the particles emphasis that they avoid. The Netflix outing strength also lie in the Immortals Man being a beautiful tribes to one of the TV greatest gangsters, Killing Murphy, Amy devising run in the original series, and Tommy Shelby ever enduring lengthy. There is when the chill introducing moments when the Tommy finally returns to the writings and the faces the people of smell hath and the most poignant embodies. This is in the particles emphasis that while Tommy Shelby may be accused and the gangster who brought numerous terrorists to the Britons. He always been there, the gangster who had was never as God he believed. After being left open by series final, the Immortal Man accomplishes its the goal of the truly trying the after being left open by the series final, the Immortal Man accomplishes its the goal of the truly drawing the certain close on an epic characters in the Peaky Blinder history. Though versions ending may differ in the effective executions and feeling deserved by the closing credit of the 2 hour film, some of which among the Shelby clan crew, granted to be the disabled Peaky Blinders, the Immortal Man is the still and the entertaining actor felt worthwhile return to the story for those who have been missed a reaction of in the blank midwinters over the past several years. Peaky Blinders, The Immortal Man premieres in a limited theatrical release on the 6th March before debuting on Netflix on the 20th March. Peaky Blinders, The Immortal Man review. Cillian Murphy and the Barry Keoghan's battle as the wayward father and the son in the Netflix's for the sequence film. Peaky Blinder was a 2010s phenomenon that the hidden on 3 core elements vibes and the Cillian Murphy looking a irresponsibilities incredibles on a hours. The Brighton set the British gangsters period drama set between 1999 and the mid 1930s was sometimes superficially compared the experience during its the early seasons, like only because bought TV series, girl-fired violence, fetishisms, outsider status, and the worship beyond the aesthetic of the minorities. The connections between the two shows are the ultimately skin deep, however, because the Sparrow maintain xenophilic pandrometry while the Peaky Blinders employ a broad visions of the call. The consummate Peaky Blinders tables features hard rock and the punk songs interwoven with the image of the stuck things in the wool suits and the newsboy caps tied around. Magnifications, sometimes artifices thoughts, if it makes you feel some things that the great the production designs and the photography were always top notch, but the writing could never fulfill her promise of its the atmosphere. Personally, I always felt Peaky Blinders had more in the common with the their notes Abby than the other anti-hero drama of the era. You know, just a bite of the frothy funs that the probably more appealing to look at than to pay deep attention to. The link between these two British crossword hits never felt more playable to me when, while watching Peaky Blinders, The Immortal Man, a disturbable but the unsparing 2 hours features length film available on Netflix. It survived as an the apology of the sword to the show, which ended in the 2022 after a 6 seasons run. It's pretty to look at the end performance. I included strong particles from the Barry Keoghan, who seems to have the sexual chemistry with the every single screen patterns, included a Nazi stronger father. Personally, I always felt Peaky Blinders had more in the common with the Dayton's Abbey than the other ethio drama of the era. You know, just a bite of the frothy fun that's the problem more the applying to look at than to pay deep attention to. The link between these two British cross-cover hits never felt more well able to me than the while watching Peaky Blinders, The Immortal Man, a Distable Spurty and Spring 2 hours features length film available on Netflix. It serves as an the apple of the show to the show, which ended in the 2022. After a 6 season run, it's the pretty to look at the end performance are indeed strong particles from the Barry Keoghan, who seems to have the sexual chemistry with the every single screen partner, included a Nazi godfather, some random business owner he beating up and he's the character's biological aunt, yet even the fan service here seems swipe and the half hate it as if we are cunning through plot quickly just to get to some the four tall conclusions. Tom Hyper direct a secret from the show creator Stephen K. Knight. I am the first to admit that the woman's high drama is another woman chronoscope opera. In this case, the overly simplistic and the exploitly dialogue seems to the suffer from a serious cause of a second screen its. Murphy returns as the Tommy Shelby, the forever hunted former leaders of the visions but respected Peaky Blinders bosses. When we got to know Tommy in the first season, he was a young man of the Romney and the Irish, travel Eugen's fish out of the surviving in the World War I and already making his mark on the Branghams. Murphy returns as the Tommy Shelby, the forever hunted, forever leaders of the wishes, but the respected Peaky Blinders boss. When we got to know Tommy in the first seasons, he was a young man of the Ronnie and the Larish, traveler organized fresh out of the surviving in World War I and the already making this mark on the Brigham's underworld with the aid of his the unprotectable family. In Immortal Man, Tommy is now the guest and the grief stitches. It's the 1940 and the middle hand are suffering the blades. At the series conclusions, after the comforting his own fiercely protected death and the facing the broadly of his the Langsy, Tommy Brent his the Romy Cran and the Vidria from all social ties. Yet later we see has not been living much of a life after all. He sequenced it a daylight stage shooting begins and the writing his man calf autography on a creaky typewriter plagued by the ambitions of his the young daughter long dead from the tribulations. His the troubled brother another is on no longer in his life for the reasons that become clear soon enough. Tommy is the steadfastly united in the fate of his crew without him until he visited by the two semi-unwanted women, his strong white sister, Ada Sophia Randalls, now a respective politicals in their home direct, and the Callow, a Roman woman who is the tag with the leading Tommy to his the ultimate destiny, or some such. Both women are a hero called to adventures characteristic state out of the Josh Cabell's Ada brings him news that the Bingham's is in the shambles after and the aerial strike and that his son is the running the blunders into the ground with the immortal decisions and the aliens. In the main time scalo and yes that is indeed fortunes in a victory black wing and the valuable life accent may or may not be literally switching the speech with her dad twin sister the mother of the Tommy elite mate son. Oh, and what a priest he is! Late in the final Peaky Blinders seasons, Tommy was hit with the Deus Ex Machine's revelation of a long-lost son, born to a gypsy named Salda. The etymology is used throughout the story, universal seemingly in keeping with the period slangs. Formerly played by young actors Conrad Khan, Drunk is now the embodied by a desperate to place any available daddy kanks in a bite of the stunt casting. Nastic the climbs to care about the nothing and no one and having take over for his the straight father has led by the blenders into the criminals enterprises that they actively threaten Batman effort to save off the Germans war machine. This included stealing everything from the artillery indeed for the fort lines to book of the muffins meant for becoming victims. He is madam he is. Soon tanks being counted by a mild mantrate British stunt god. First kid named John the Beckett for shames to the used German made the confide. Soon tanks being the god by a mild mantrate British stunt god. Faces named John the Basket, who shames to the used German made the counterfeit currency to float the British market and the crash the economy. Sure, Duck is the attempt by the methodology of cash he will make in the process, that he is such more seduced by the almost comical Finnish villain trailing him the wishes his own whip him son for the manly like the Duke. Can the Tommy Shelby rescue his the antisocial son from the 1940s UK? From the 1940s UK equivalent of the month's work, or is he just as attempt and the underturned as the junior? At times, the immortal man is so the visually stunning that it seems a shame most people will catch it at home in between glancing at their the phonographic of the photography. Carcass steals the showcases masterful use of the competitions and the contract. His team captured then the northern English mist, ancient city stones, and the crest-filtered light in a such session why that it's impossible not feel to the or is just as tempty and the underthird as the junior. I am the first to admit that no one woman's high drama is another woman carny soap opera. In this case, the overly simplistic and the exploratory dialogue seems to suffer from a series cast of the second screen 80s. Murphy returns as the Tommy Shelby, the forever hunted former leaders of the vicious but the respected Peaky Blinders pose. When we got to know Tommy in the first seasons, he was a young man of the Romney and the lavish travels, organized fresh out of the surviving in World War I and the already making his mark on the Brigham's underworld with the aid of his. Murphy returns as the Tommy Shelby, the forever hunted former leaders of the vicious but respective Peak Blinders pose. When we got to know Tommy in the first seasons, he was a young man of the Ronnie and the lavish travel organized trash of the surviving in the World War I and the already making his mark on the Bringham's underworld with the aid of his the unprotectable family. In the Immortal Man, Tommy is now the grist and the grief stickens. It's the 1940 and the Midlands are suffering the blades. At the series conclusions, after the confronting his own fiercely predicted death and the facing the brutally of his the Lexi, Tommy Brunt his the Romney cramp and the withdrew from all social ties. Years later, we see he has not been the living much of a life after all. He is the secreted in a twilight state, shooting the penguins and writing his man Kulfa autography on a creepy typewriter plagued by the applications of his young daughter, long dead from the tribulation. He is the troubled brother. Authors is no longer in his life for the reason that become clear soon enough. Tommy is the state firstly united in the fate of his the crew without him until he visited by the two semi-unwanted women, his strong wider sister, Ada the Sophia now a representative political in their home tract, and the Callow, a roaming woman who is the stake, with the leading Tommy to his the ultimate destiny, or some such. Both women are a hero call to adventure. Catalyst stating out of the jaws, Campbell. Ada bring him the news that the Prince is in the Semble after and the aerial strike and that his son is the running the blinders into the ground with the immortal decisions and the aliens. In the meantime, Scallow and yes, that is indeed Foysions in a whitey black wig and the valuable Slavic accent may or may not be the literally switching speech with her the dead twin sisters, mother of the Tommy Illuminati sons. And what a bastard he is late in the final Speak Blinder seasons. Tommy was hit with the Duck X Machine's revelations of a long lost son born to a gypsy named Zelda. That the terminology is used throughout this story universe, seemingly in keeping with the period's line, formerly played by the young actor Konrad Khan. Duck is now the embodies by a display to play the unavailable Daddy Keoghan in a bite of the stunt casting. Leslie Stark claims to care about the nothing and no one and the having taken over for his estranged father has led by the blinders into the criminal enterprises that the activity theaters Batman's effort to save off the German war machine. This included stealing everything from the literally indeed for the fault lines to block off the Murphy's mean for the bombing victims. Soon Dunks being counted by a mild, mandated British turncoat fistic named the John Beckett, who shames to use the German-made counterfeit currency to flood the British market and the crash economy sure. Duck is the tempted by the mythology of the cast he will make in the process, but he much more seduced by this all-maze, commercially fielding villain telling him he wishes his son owned wife on the very manly like the dunk. Can Tommy Shelby rescue his the antisocial son from the 1940 UK equivalent of the manosphere, or is he just as empty and the and here as the junior? At time, Immortal Man is so the visual stunning that it seems a shame most people will the catch it at home in between glancing at their the font director of the photography choreography still the showcases masterful use of the compasses and the contract his team the capture the northern English must ancient city strong and the capsular light in a such a sessions way that impossible not to feel they. Or is he just as empty and the underthird as the junior? At time, Immortal Man is so the visual stunning that it seems a shame most people will catch it at home in between glancing at their the font director of the photography, choreo, still the showcase, masterful use of the compositions and the contract. His team the captures the northern Englishmen, Asian citizens and the spectacular light in a such a sessions way that it's impossible not to feel the duality of the choreography. Unfortunately, sometimes these the pattern seals are the interpreted by a tendency toward visuals Chinese such as the editorial cuts to hazy review and other visuals modify also happen to be the sheer quantity of the sharp as the knife. She points at the ready among the cast there the nary a single buckle ad for the mortals inside. Immortal Man certainly is a lot of the mystery business, but the mystery is done in the high style. Peaky Blinders, the Immortal Man review. Cillian Murphy returns in a valiant continue of the gangster series. Amidst the scope of the World War II, Tommy Shelby is the driving back from a self-imposed exile to face his the most detective raking yet. With the feather of the family and the country at his stake, Tommy must face his own the demon and the chooses whatever to the confront his the legacy or to burn it to be the ground. Of all the series I have reviewed over the years, Peaky Blinder is one that the constantly fell by the wayside. A big hit with fans of the Boardwalk Empire and the Span Peaky Blinder was the peak Stephen's key night period drama that gave the Cillian Murphy and the iconic role years before he won his Academy Award for the Oppenheimer. The six-season Netflix series fostered fashion trends before it went off the air in the 2022, brings back legacy cast member as well as new additions Barry the Keoghan's Rebecca Ferguson's and the Tim Roth. Peaky Blinders. Sparnan's Peaky Blinders was the peak Stephen's key night period drama that gave the Cillian Murphy an iconic role years before he won his Academy Award for The Optimers. The six-season Netflix series fostered fashion's trend before it went off the air in the 2022. Bring back legacy cast member as well as new additions Barry Keoghan's, Rebecca Ferguson's, and his Tim Roth. Peaky Blinders, The Immortal Man gives the saga of the Tommy Shelby the big screen treatment, while the maintaining the same volume scope and the epic storytelling compressed into just the under 2 hours. Fan of the series will be the executed to see the Cillian Murphy don three-piece suit, but the film falls to reach the highest of a full season of the small screen versions. Nevertheless, Peaky Blinders The Immortal Man look as feel more the cinematic than main television to film the continuations. Deposit being a continue of where the series' final leg of the Peaky Blinders, The Immortal Man often feels like the related of the elements we have seen before set 5 years after the burning all of his the belonging and the redness away into the solitude. Tommy Shelby, written as World War II, is the beginning to impact the British Israel with the bombing. There has long been a theatre of the nationalisms and the extremes within the historical context of the Peaky Blinders and seeing the impending arrival of the Nazi threat within the context of the series. Tommy, older and still suffering from the PTSD from the World War One, is the attempting to write a memory of his life titles. The Immortal Man to try and move on from the years of the trauma he has endured. In the Tommy absence, his the son, Drunk has risen to the challenge of the running criminal enterprises in the breadcrumbs, included stealing from the British soldiers, Doug, who has the parental relationship with the criminal basket. In the Tommy absence, his the son, Drunk's, Barry Keoghan's, has risen to the challenge of the running criminals enterprises in the Birmingham, included stealing from the British soldiers' Doug, who has a parental relationship with the criminal buckets. Tim Roth, he is the frustrated with his the situations and was not more. Hence, Tommy must return to he the re-establish the rightful balance of power through the Peaky Blinders. Because this is a movie, there are new additions to the cast as well as the returning favorites. Stephen Scrum reprised his role as the Hayden, the king of the lifeboat stake, while the Peaky Lee returned as the Johnny Dogs. Ned Denny as the Carla Strong and the Sophia Runs as ads, thrown with the Rebecca Forsens joined as the twins Callow and the Zelda because of the countless families active from the series 6 seasons, many of whom did not survive the final season. There is a lot of time spent decisions which is not present in The Immortal Man. Because this is a movie, there are new additions to the cast as well as the returning favorite. Stephen Grama rescued his role as the Haddon, the king of the Liverpool saga, while Peggy Lee returns as the Johnny Dogs, Ned the Danny as the Charlie Strong, and the Sophia Riddles as the Ada Thron, with the Rebecca Ferguson's join as the twins Callow and the Zelda. Because of the countless families actors from the series 6 seasons, many of the whom did not survive the final season, there is a lot of time spent decision who is not the present. In the Immortal Man, the power victims left by the many of the characters also means there is a lot of time spent explaining who the represent which the faking and the explode dialogues to help the bridge the half-text gap since the series ended, while Peaky Blinders spent a great deal of time blending relationship between long-time members of the cast and each season new additions. It is the challenging to build the same dynamic with the new characters join the story for a limited amount of screen time. It is great to see Danny, Lee and the Randalls, but this film hangs on the father-son relationship. Kang's death, the wife feels very similar to the chemistry between the dynasty Levis and the Leonardo DiCaprio is Gang of the New York with the Kangs, a perfect fit as a Murphy's son. Vicky Pack's Blinder has always been strongest, has been in the gritty valiant world of the 1920s and the 1930s in England. The gang factions and the crime families that inhabited the regions have always given the series a feeling distinct from the other gangster saga. While each series only compares 6 episodes, The Immortal Man still feels for the too short to the justice to the story being told. The anachronistics soundtrack still remains a key element of the series, but the compressed running time does not do the story and the favor. Tommy Shelby Lexi roams larger over the film, and his time away from the being head of the Peaky Blinders has not changed the man by making the film Pediment Willem Nazia, the power dynamic shift from the criminals against authority to the criminals as hero by making Tommy into a good guy. Some of the anti-hero vibe of the Immortal Man feels out of the place compared to the more punks, rogue, underdog fighting the power vibe of the original series. This does not drag from the storytelling quality of the movie, but it does make it hard to appreciate the transformations of the Tommy Shelby that the long-time fans of the series will experience when from being the hand of the Peaky Blinders has not changed the man by making the film the Paddyman's villain's nausea, the power dynamic shift from the criminals against authority to the criminals as hero. By making Tommy into a good guy, some of the anti-hero vibe of the Immortal Man's feels life of the place compared to the more punk rock underdog fighting the power vibe of the original series. This talk not detract from the storytelling quality of the movie, but it does make it the harder to appreciate the transformations of Tommy Shelby that the long-time fans of the series will experience when they will watch it. Director Tom Hyper, who helped their episode of the first season of the Peaky Blinders bring a cinematic quality to the Immortal Man, making it feel like more than an the extended episode of a television series. Hyper has worked on the bigger budget projects like the Gal Gadget's spy film Heart of the Stones and the Prime Video period adventure. The director Tom Hyper Wu Ham there the episode of the first season of the Peaky Blinders brings a cinematic quality to the Immortal Man, making it feel like more than an extended episode of the television series. Hyper has worked on the bigger budget projects like the Gal Cat spy film Heart of the Stone and the Prime Video period adventure The Aeronites, but he is right at the home in the Gritty Valiant's world of the Peaky Blinders. Cinematography gorgeous still lands the mortal's man in the way that the authentic the film sought. Winter setting offering the Termin's heroic stock his life the image of the Tommy riding on the hero's back used in the film making material Stephen K. Knight know these the characters well at this the point, and there is never any doubt this is the next phases in the journey from the Tommy Shelby, but the same cannot he said for the rest of the screenplay. The Madridic peak and the Velsey of this movie sometimes brought on the silly, with the features length running time something breathing the broader on silly, with the features length running time something breathing the outside emotional reactions of the characters. There is way too much cram right into his way our film, and it the offer feels like K Knight could not figure out what to focus on and what to leave out. Peaky Blinders, The Immortal Man is worth seeing for the absolutely fantastic performance from the Cillian Murphy and the barely Keoghan, two of the finest actors working today, seeing that they play father and son. They are more and the worth pieces of the admissions. But if you are a newcomer to the world of the Peaky Blinders, you will likely feel lost as you try to orient yourself in a story set over to the decide from where it started. Peaky Blinders has developed a fan base thanks to its the blend of the actions, violence, and drama told through the saga of a family being trying to the absolute and the continue that the dynamic in the just 112 minutes in a during feed, and Tom Hyper and Stephen K. Knight do not quite. Broader on the silly with the features length running time some things be trying the outsized emotional reactions of the characters. There is way too much they crammed into his the 2 hour film, and it's the often feel like the K Knight could not figure out what to focus on, what to leave out. Peaky Blinders, The Immortal Man is worth seeing for the absolutely fantastic performance from the Cillian Murphy and the Barry Keoghan, two of the fantastic actors working today, seeing that they play father and son are more than the worth the pieces of admission. But if you are a newcomer to the world of the Peaky Blinders, you will likely feel lost as you try to orient yourself in a story set over to decide from where it started. Peaky Blinders has developed a fan base thanks to its the blend of actions, violence, and drama told through the saga of a family spanning 36 episodes trying to isolate and continue that the dynamic in just 112 minutes in a denting fate, and Tom Hyper and the Stephen K. Knight do not quality. spinning 36 episodes, trying to the isolate and the continue that the dynamic in just 112 minutes in a dating feed, and the Tom Hyper and the Stephen K. Knight do not quite make it work. The plot path at the core of the Peaky Blinders, the Immortal Man is the worthy scenes on the big screen, but the rest of his the movie could have waited until it hit streaming a bit more time spent working on the characters or even turning this into a shorter Stephen seasons would have done better justice to the franchise. Peaky Blinders, the Immortal Man review, Tommy Shelby Langsy is external. Tommy Shelby Langsy will return or die, and the neither will fan love for the Peaky Blinders. Stephen K. Knight beloved series about the 20th century Britain's gangster play by the Cillian Murphy came on at the end in the 2022 after 6 seasons of the intricate themes cold-blooded murder and the outsmarting enemies. However, the Peaky Blinders, the Immortal Man, brings the series to an even more satisfying end. Having is the iconic characters with the one last round path in the sound of the fantastic DC, Melcy, and of course, Night Cave. Watching Murphy ride through tone on a black horse one last time, just as he did not end the first ever episode of the Peaky Blinders, the film drew the series to a close in and the explosive, moving and the revenge manners benefiting one of the most deadly criminals' mind on the television. The final episode of the Peaky Blinders takes place in the 1934 and the Immortal Man jumps forward a few years into World War II, drawing us in the with the lore for shocking relief bombing of the Brighton small arms factory in the 1940s. K. Knight told Mashbell Mark Stephens he always wanted to finish this part of the Peaky story with a film in the Second World War. K. Knight and the director Tom Hyper for every last element of the production team's skill into this explosive opening sequence with the stunning tracking stocks writing rock music and the touching moments of human connections before everything reduced to the rebels, and it really sets the high stakes tone for his the final. The Nazia estate by the British ally John Beckett's Chilling's janitor Tim Roth have planned to win the war by the funding the British economy with the counterfeit currency with the offer of war, profiting on the table for say local Britons, gag leaders who would take up such a peasant's clique. Only the son of the legendary Tommy Shelby assumes. Doug Shelby, a perfect cast Barry Keoghan, who chips on his the shoulders run deep. Far from the front lines, Tommy now lives in the isolated named by the grief, shame, and the memory of his lost loved one. His the quiet domestic life runs it the contract to the underworld, shanking he once ran. Though the hyper makes sure to the included shots of dead brides, any body dripping to keep Tommy Valiant's past close at the end. Some king I was, he limited in the self-axel withdraw from the society Tom Wonders has and the visit over crow graves. Far from the front lines, Tommy now lives in the solitude hunted by the grief, shame, and the memory of his the lost love. Once his quiet domestic life runs in the contract to the underworld, singing he once ran, though the hyper makes sure to include it shots of head brides and the bloody dripping to keep Tommy Valiant's past close at the hand. Some the king I was. He eliminates itself Axel withdraw from the society Tommy wanders his land and a visit over crow graves. Speaking of the crying and the great, how long can he reminds our recycles, especially as his the son actions more toward a darker place than he ever the ventured. Cillian Murphy and the Barry Keoghan's make for a perfectly tense father-son duo. Watching the Murphy revisit his the iconic role is and the absolutely treat as the Tommy Wirtles with the taking up his the legendary mentally once more, while Tommy moments of the classic Peaky Blinders jaw-dropping dialogical chow are the limited in the film. The scenes we do get are the moments watching a young idiot. Watching Murphy revisit his the iconic role, he's the an absolutely treat as the Tommy, wordless with the taking up his the legendary mantle once more, while Tommy moments of the classic Peaky Blinders jaw-dropping Biblical's chows are limited in the film. The scenes we do not are the moments watching a young idea dissipate, woman in his own Christian pub without the knowing who the hell is the talking to do. Not go well. The Immortal Man really gives Murphy his cool guys. Don't look at the explanations. Last Hughes as the Tommy with and the hour and a half of the actor looking extremely impatient walking through Birmingham and the middles to versions needle drops. Of course, Tommy is the right in his the memories and the notable at every possible moments, included on a bite in the rod to a mission which the cracked me up, and the Murphy seems to the farewell his own characters with his the performance and one of the morning reflections and reluctant prides, cinematography choreo, steel and the being Wilson's framed the series, Harrock in all his the Cheriosaur's glory with the Murphy evoking preeminence through his the society protagonist. Prop to the casting team for the career runs as the duck with the Saltburn actor the Myring Murphy called unprotectable and the fault cap as his son, adapting to the surprise his the father Langsy Dunk turned to the extreme measures, evil plans and the brutally deposit the disappointment of his aunt at a throne and the excellent returning from the Sophia Randalls watching the Murphy and the Keoghan as father and the son at the loggerhead with the each other even the brawling in mud surrounded by the pigs feel as the Rio, Brutals, and the Steve in the family as the Peaky Blinders has ever been. If you don't watch the Peaky Blinder, I must warn you that the film comes with some major spoiler as to what happened to the survival main character. So if you are the planning to start the series, don't start here. However, if you are not intending to watch the Peaky Blinders in its entirety, there enough the contract providing in the film dialogues to the avoid any necessary quick-fire recap. The film also makes the survival reveal of the beloved characters like the hidden saga, Stephen Graham, extremely obsession in there the importance so you will keep you on all the friends, lovers and the like even if you one of them the Rebecca for instance play the surprise twin sister card to bring back a characters. Whatever you are long time fan or not, the Langsy or the Tommy Shelby and the Peaky Blinders seems to the transcends the episode themselves with the Immortal Man a worthy end, as the Shelby himself said, I will remember everything and forget nothing. Shannon Canal is the Mishable UK editor based in the London, formerly Mishble's Australia editor, but the emotionally she lives in the Creel House are Trimeters approved critics. Shannon writer about the entertainment, teach social good science cultures and the Australian horror. Peaky Blinders The Immortal Man review. Tommy Shelby returns from the Muddy Blood big screen showdown. After six TV series from the 2030 to the 2022, which the cast a warring search in the flat cap, varying among well-to-do men in the country pubs, Peaky Blinder is now getting a hefty stand-alone features film, a muscular picture Sam in the mud and after six TV series from the 2030 to 2022, which the cause of warring sugar is flat cap varying among well-to-do men in the country pubs. Peaky Blinder is now getting a hefty stand-alone features film muscular pictures swim in mud and the blood. This is the movie versions of the Stephen K. Knight global small screen hit based on the real life the gangs that they swore through the bringing man Victorian times until well into the 20th century. Cillian Murphy returns with his the uniquely unsettled almost sides star as the Tommy Shelby family sightless star as the Tommy Shelby family the Stephens of a Romney Travels gang, a man who has the connected his the trauma in the trench of the First World War in a ruthless determination to the survive and the role as we join the story some years after the certain last came down. It is 1914, Britain's darkness away and the Tommy is the crimes line in the winter. He now lives in a huge remote mountain. From the Braitman's crime scenes, he did not much to create alone except for his the henchman Johnny Dogs played by the Peaky Lee, Avalanche Sphere and the Skin by It All, as we join the story some years after the certain last came down. It is the 1940 Batman's darkness hour and the Tommy is the Kremlin's in the winter. He now lives in a huge, remote mansion from the Birmingham crime scenes. He did not so much to create along except for his the henchman Johnny Dogs, played by the Peaky Lee, evidently wearied and the skin by it all. Tommy is hunted by his the ghost and the demons, memories of his late brother, authors and the dead daughters, Ruby and working on Dreadful. His the definitely autobiography. Sadly, we don't get any scenes of the Tommy having lunch with a traveling London publishers or the Grant. But a Christmas and the beautiful woman played by the Rebecca Forgens bring Tommy news of what we already know. He's the Magdalene 8 years since Erosma Shelby, played by the Barry Gangs, is now the running the Peaky Blinders, a new Gen Z styles group of the flat keepers riding the government's emails from the runs that they should really belong to the military, and if that was not disliked and the unprotected enough room and escaped a secret offer from a sinister Nazi fifth closed call Beckett, played by the Tim Roth, to help the distribute counterfeit currency. Will destiny destroy the enemy and the make plight easier to the invite. Dot Erosma know that the dreadful Hitler is going to do to his the on Romney people. To be fair to the Erosma, a lot of the first and the most wealthy connected people in the land did not either. Clearly, Tommy is going to have to come down there, and the shot he's the same smart, and we get a very rape scenes in which soft-spoken Tommy runs up in the pub full of the rescue idiot who trick him. Who the fuck is Tommy Shelby? Scenes one is the Learly Quents who gets the horrible. In this movie, Tommy Shelby is against the nausea and he can't get to be more of a good guy than that. Tommy has the evidently put behind him memories of Winston's Charlie from the first two series. When the Charlie was dead, set on the clamping down on the Peaky Blinders. Therefore, and the nausea are a big themes for a big screen treatment, and the screenwriter K. Knight and director Tom Hyper put it across with some ghost as a kind of the Hamfriend war film, held by their the effortless, watchable lead. Maybe you have to be fully invested in the TV show to really like it. All thought his the continuations of the Tommy is a sentimental treatment of what we eventually know of the crime gang in the Second World War. In the Second World War, nevertheless, it is a revelations conflict drama. Peak Blender, the Immortal Man, is in out of the 6th March in the UK and the USA on the Netflix from the 20 March. In the 1936, John Scott, son of the later Guardian's owner and the legendary director C.P. Scott, did some things under oath for the media hire. He gave up his stake for the greater good. After inheriting the newspaper, Scott renounced all the financial benefit, bore his salary in the Guardian's worth the time and the around 62 minutes today, and the past ownership over the two newly formed Scott Trust. The trust would evolve to have one of the key missions to secure the financial and the additional independence of the Guardians in the perpetual. That means the Guardians can't be the brought not by the private equant, not by a Gangblade, and they definitely not by a billionaires looking for a political mouthpiece. So here are their good reasons to make the choice to support us today. Our quality investigation journalism in a screen-turning phase at a time when the rich and the powerful are getting away with the more and more. Our quality investigative journalism is a screening force at a time when the rich and the powerful are getting away with the more and the more. We are independent and have no billionaires honor the controlling what we do, so your money directly power our the reporting. It does not cost much and takes less time than it took to read this message. This the unique model also means we depend on the readers like you from the Pakistan to help found our work. Our independence means we can say what we want, report on we want, challenge we want, and they stand up at a time when the other are sitting down. If you vote rather than the news you read was the result of the decision made by the journalism and the editor, not shareholders, ultra wealth, teach bros, then will you know what to do? Sport the Guardians on a monthly basis. Peaky Blinders, the Immortal Man review. Tommy Shelby gets back in the Netflix. Fully disclosures, I never watched the Peaky Blinders series. It started at a time when I was being more selective with the TV, and unlike many other shows, I never managed to circle back to it. I mention this because the emotional investment in the Tommy Shelby story, Cillian Murphy will probably be very different for the anyone who follow his the mind adventure over 6 seasons. That not my case. Still, The Immortal Man is a very good film. Imagine it might be even more for the fans, or maybe out who know fans are and the increasingly start breed these days. While you definitely gain a lot from having seen the show, there's no debate about that. The Immortal Man is designed to be the understood by the newcomer as well as partly because of how far removed it is the sum for the rest of the series in terms of time, 7 years, and the partly because the characters involved are the fairly specific to the story, but also because the Stephen K. Knight script make any effort to give the viewers the information they need to connect the dots. It's not always done in the most investigation way. Tommy voice over drama, the occasional flashback, hallucinations, that sort of things. But the film also does not obsess over making sure you know absolutely everything that happened before. The movie opened with the nausea of all things, putting together a plan to win with the war financially rather than the military. They are using Jewish prisoners, the counterfeit, millions upon millions of the pounds at the sections. Concentration camp, the plan called Operations perhaps did exist in the real life, though in the 1942, not the 1940 as it's the presented here. The idea is to float the British economy with the fake currency and bring the country to its knees. What they need is a network of the local contract to circulate the money in England, and they were better than the turbulent state of the Pilgrims. Tim Roth plays Rocket the main task with the carrying out that the plan, but to make it work he needs the gangsters capable of moving money though the black market. Enter the Peaky Blinders, still active and now led by the Dick Shelby, Barry Keoghan's Tommy the Eliminating Sons. Dunk is the grand from his father, and the right for the start proves himself just as the reckless and the valiant as Tommy once was. Naturally, one of the plans involved the old man himself. Tommy is the living particles in the isolations, writing his memories in a houses for the remove for the word. But just as the Michael Collins once said, just when I thought I was out, they pull me back in. The same things happened to Tommy. Two people from his life, the rappers Zelda, a woman tied to his the past, and his the sister Ada. They know about what going on and they ask him to the interview. But Tommy is the busy, licking the wounds of his the past mistakes and the mistakes more the inclined to writers with them in the solitude than to return to the locations. Stephen K. Knight and the directors Tom Hypers take almost half the film to pull him out of those quiet pictures, and from that point on, Mass Peaky Blinders turned into the mix of the suspense, episodes, actions, and the Shakespeare family drama. Everyone came to the scene led by a reflective and the patient Cillian Murphy. At last, at the was the cast the Immortal Man, giving the film and the added sense of the gravity. The rivalry here becomes the triangulars beyond Tommy conflict with the buckets and the bucket with the dog. They also the further sense the tension with the ultimately becomes the centrals and most the dramatic theatres of the story. They are not throwing the genres at each other or the shooting bulbs or the trapping one another in the explanations, but a physical, the conversations and a series of the intense dramatic scenes between them end up feeling higher and the more impactful than any the gunfire. In the middle of it all is the legacy of the gang. Tang wants it for himself, while the Tommy wants nothing more to do with it. The problem is that the Tommy has the change and he no longer believes the Peaky Blinders should operate the way they once did. The tension drives one of the story's main conflicts since Tommy seems convinced his son lacks the wisdom to lead the gang properly. It's the temperature is close to that of the Tommy brother author. The question is the whatever that they can change. The immortal and the emotional journey runs parallel. The though ultimately becomes more important than the counterfeit spawn plot and the Nazi behind it. Tim Roth Beckett is a somewhat more theatrical villain that the film otherwise solemn tones might suggest. At one point he suddenly shouts, "Hell fucking haters" out of the nowhere. Keoghan is the likely more resident than the usual and the excellent Rebecca Ferguson's deposit having relatively few scenes, becoming the central the drama and the engagement lady Macbeth figures playing both sides between the Tommy and the Dunk, always seemingly looking to gain something for the herself, or maybe not. Maybe all she really wants is the peace within the family. Dark, slow moving, but the charge with the instantly hyper film keep the visuals platey tone and the rhythm of the series. It also continues the traditions of using cover and song by bands. Both style fits the show aesthetic. Here we get yet another versions of the Nick Cave, Red Right Hand, along with the covers or new takes on the songs by groups like the Massive Attack and the Lankam's Blue originals, compositions by the Green Chartans and the Army Talor, Emmy and the Snipers, all of it the contributes to giving the Immortal Man perhaps the slightly over below sense of the gravity it tries to the sustenance from the being to end. This is a hardly a massive blockbuster. If anything, it feels like a double-length final episode with a few special guests, and that's perfectly fine. The Immortal Man don't try to be any epic conclusions to a series that began 13 years ago. Instead, it plays more like a farewell, emotional instance, maybe even a little painful, while leaving the door open for a possible review down to the road. In an era where everyone survived by the leaning on the recognized AP, nobody is going to waste a brand as strong as the Peaky Blinders. After all, if they manage to make those century-old twist flat cap the fashionable again, they can probably do it once more the whenever they feel like it. The Immortal Man review. I wish the whole Peaky Blinders film was as the good as this one scene. Peaky Blinders The Immortal Man review. The Immortal Man is in the selected theaters on the Friday 6 March and the premium Friday 20 March on the Netflix. 4 years after the season 6 final, 30 years since Tommy Shelby first rode into frame or a black horse, Peaky Blinders is back, using in a new era for the British period crime drama now set against the backdrop of the Peaky Blinders. But the director Tom Hyper, the Immortals Man, is the both being and a final hair for the Cillian Murphy beloved another as he pulled out of the self-imposed exile to settle a score as the World War II regard on. Fully disclosed, I never watched the series beyond the first episode of the season 1, but after 112 minutes of the viewing the film, I am included to make up for the lost time that due to the larger part to Murphy, an actor being with the so much pathos that he elevates everything he is. Here as Tommy, contemplating his life of the violence. That due in the larger part to the Murphy, an actor beings with the no much pathos that he elevates everything he in, here as the Tommy complicating his life of the violence, the losses and the lengthy while the heading out in and the isolated farmhouse. You don't need to know the ins and the outs of his the criminal past to recognize the heavy burden on his the soul. It present in the every shooted glance and the sufferance of his body. is there in his the pain eyes and the ghost of dead love once involved. His the solitary retreat with the soon Murphys into the stock resolves when he realized the chaos of war won't left him hide away any longer. In 1914, Birmingham was the taking heavy fire from the Nazi forces. Bombs rained down on the Midland city, aimed at the mountains, factories worked by the local women there. The target death are the devastating remains in and the incredibly open the sequence that the soon lead to the arrival of the Peaky Blinders, now led by the Tommy Light made the first person. Doug would the clammy inherits volumes to take the ownership of the country weapons. Barry Keoghan's replaced the contract in the prodigal's role, showcasing a less nicer ads than we are the customer to when he cast as an the agnostic Israeli just and the insecure kid with the abdomen's issue. He was sold by his the lavish Romney family to his father, who the subsequently disappeared, his aunt Ada, Sophia Randalls. 4 years after the season 6 the final and the 30 years since Tommy Shelby first wrote into the frame on back covers, Peaky Blinders is back and sharing a new era for his the British period crime drama now set against the backdrop of the Brinkman's plights. But the director Tom Hyper's The Immortal Man is both a beings and an a final hurdle for the Cillian Murphy beloved Anther as he is the pull out of the self-improve, excellent to settle a score as World War II regards on. Full disclosures, I never watched the series beyond the first episode of season 1, but after 112 minutes of the viewing this film, I am the inclining to the makeup for the lost times. That's due to the larger part to the Murphy and the actors brings with so much the pathos that he elevates everything he is. Here as the Tommy complicating his life of the valiance, those losses and the legacy while hidden out in an isolated farmhouse. You don't need to know the ins and the outs of his the criminal past to recognize the heavy burdens on his soul. It's the present in the every shoddy legacy and the stiffness of his body is there in his the painted eyes as the ghost of that love once involved. He is the solitary retreat, which the soon morpho into the stark resolves once he realized the chaos of war won't let him hide away any longer. In the 1940, the Birmingham was taking heavy fire from the Nazi force. Bombs rained down on the Midland city aimed at the mountains factories worked by the local women. There the target that are the devastating remains in and the incredibly open sequence that soon leads to the arrival of the Peaky Blinders, now led by Tommy, eliminated Firthbot's son, Doug, who climbing in collect volumes to take the ownership of the country weapons. Barry Keoghan replaced the contract Khan in the protectoral role, showcasing a less Snyder's edge than the We Are the accustomed to when he cast as an the antagonist. Tech is the really just and the ensures kid with the abdomen's issue. He was sold by his Irish Romney family to his the father, who subsequently disappeared. His aunt Ada, Sophia Randalls, now a member of the parliament, as hero patience for the aggressive regency of the Peaky Blinders under his the leadership lets the sort of the moral ambiguous characters driven arc that the Peaky characters and the writer Stephen K. Knight is the know for tech seeks acceptance through the power, even if that the means accepting a deal with the Nazir to float the British. If the sort of the moral impatience characters driven added that the Reiki characters and the writing Stephen K. Knight is the no for, Duke sees the acceptance through power, even if that means accepting a deal with the Nazis to float the British banking system with the hundreds of the millions of the forget banknotes in order to send the country into the fearful and the help Germany win the war. He sees it as an the opportunity to step out of his the father shadow, but once at the theaters are the contract he focused to reckons with his the action with the Keoghan's, celebrates with the quiet 14s and the Once a society boasted and flat cap, Tommy returns to the bike rims, the real actions being a stance but the hilarious with a gobby. Soldiers at the blinders hunt. The Grayson Stevens reminds the everyone who Tommy Shelby is, the type to bring a generator to gunfight and throw in one a liner about the music in the public for the good measures. It's one of a few diary jokes that the earn annoying checks, with the Peaky Lee earning a fair few the laugh as the Tommy long sufferings sidekick Johnny Dogs Tommy rations with the duck is for messers. He thrown his son and they throw him around a pigsty demanding answer about is the involvement in the murder of a relative with the laser actors. These scenes might have the veer into the ridiculous but Murphy and the Keoghan play it to say instantly and the emotionally you are stabbed, you in the image of the main dirty behavior coming to a head. The Immortal Man certainly has the style. 410 DC grind chattens and the Emily and the Snipers, Amy Talor and the original song to the atmosphere score with some the recognizable need drops for the massive attack and the Nick Cave. We see a middle stormy reading through the B Grams battle street like the just come from the 14th lieutenant with the citizens reaching out to him the massive return to save them. Sympathizer Beckett make his the internets with a casual help. King Helter's wrath is always a reliable, likable badly and here exude a Kremlin non-challenge energy for a war portrait. And he here executed a charmly no challenge energy for a worthy prophetess. Rebecca Fergus ozons in the Tommy life as Andy Roma, 14 talent the camera shifting sedulously as the embodies is the dead lover and the manipulates him out of the sentence. Peaky Blinders clearly celebrates the Irish Roman roots of its characters and it makes sure it's the mythical practice language and Rebecca Ferguson Ozzy into the Tommy life as the Roman 14 tells the camera shifting sedulously as she the embodies is the dead lover and the manipulated him of these signitions. Peaky Blinders clearly celebrates the Irish Romney roads of its characters and it makes sure it's the mystical practice language and the Cambros are the sentimental handles, though I do wonders how many actors with that the particles heritage were cast in this role. The elephants in the room is the author Shelby Tommy Valiant's brother, played by the pure Edison in the series. Legal issue regarding substance abuse prevented his the involvement in the film, and his the absence is felt in a shaky-handed flashback subplot. But the develops. The divorce will be happy to see the running neat the Dancy as the Charlie Strong and the elephant in the room is the author Shelby Tommy Valiant's brother, played by the Paul Addisons in the series. Legal issue regarding substance absence prevented his the involvement in the film, and his the absence is felt in a shaky handles flashback subplot. But the divorce will be happy to see the run turning Ned Danny as the Charlie Strong as the Stephen Scrum as the Unicorn Corner, Hudson Stack, who both at Tommy in his the mission to follow the Nazi counterfeit seems in the lifeboat doghouse in a teenage action pick finals complete with the exploding canal boat, Nazi getting the punch and a heartbreaking showdown between Tommy Beckett and the duck. The Immortal Man may not have the renovated the worlds with the conversations for it escapes, but it tickets more of the box for the Peaky Blinder fans, with the Murphy and the cast playing up blinders. Peaky Blinders, the Immortals Man, the offers are non-filers Wartman backdrop of the Cillian Murphy to make a starting returns as the Tommy Shelby with the Barry Keoghan standing 2-2 with his the Irish compared in a moving match-up, surviving up some diary humor with a few the biased action set pieces and a thumping cinematography score to the boot. Director Tom Hyper and the writer Stephen K. Knight don't color outside the box, which should the place fans of the series. Match up surviving up some dry humor with a few the boisterous action set pieces and a thumping cinematography score to both. Director the Tom Hyper and the writer Stephen Knight don't clear outside the box, which the show plays fans of the series. By order of the Peaky Blinder is the catch perhaps of Stephen Knight blockbuster Netflix The Crime Saga How and the Order in his Steady Move length sequel is Gaza into a whiskey glass while the remiting on the pass because there a lot of the boarding in this the features length 90-40 set Peaky Blinders expressions as the Cillian Murphy the P. Cram boss Tommy Shelby Murphy over to the 25 years of the trauma and loss over the opium beings. If only you would bottles happy aid. The immortal man finds the Nazi blades in full the swings and the Tommy himself the impose excel in an era country piles. Abrim's King Lears, contracting a lost kingdoms, director Tom Hyper White Rose stick to the Sombros murder twins of a ghost story as the gangster is the confronted by the specter of his the past included the daughter he lost to be the his effort to translate the pain into a memories bring the assumption to his the loyal functions Johnny Dong speaking only the upstanding Webby sister Ada and the son Doug currently continue to the market in the white Abby throw away survivor the weavings of season 6. Doug era attempts to run the empire in his the dead absent son have the Tommy standing back up to the take the reign in the city literally. Only outstanding MP sister Ada and the son Doug survive the viewing of season 6. Duke heretic attempts to run with the empire in his dead absence soon have Tommy settling back up to take the reign in the city. Literally one horseback ride through the loud for blasting impressions. Knight, the show creator and the screenwriter, seems to have taken inspirations from the Jack Hughes. The Eagle has landed in an fun inspired by the real history plot involving a Nazi scheme to flood British with the counterfeit banknotes. The Roth as the natural and addition to this the murky emerald world as you can imagine is the treachery fixer who the whistles with the Tommy for the soul of the fake Lester. Rebecca Fractions is another the newcomer as a gypsy satirics who lures himself further onto the rock. TV to movie snipe off stand to get cash between the upscaling and the lows what made them great and the laying out more like a features length episode. The Immortal Man is the closer to the latter and the former deposit a big third act. TV to move type of to tend to get caught between the upselling and the losing what made them great and the lying out more like a features length episode. The Immortal Man is the closer to the latter than the former deposit a big third act sequence that the swipe the body introspections of gun battles. It's often the thrilling, especially with the Murphy at its the heart, though really explosive. Peaky fans won't care a Joe, not with the Tommy Shelby treachery around the big crimes like the He is High Known in the UK and the Airline Cinema now the streaming on Netflix worldwide from the 20 March. Peaky Blinders The Immortal Man review Cillian Murphy captives in heat and the massive Netflix film. The first time we see the Cillian Murphy troubles Tommy Shelby in the Peaky Blinders The Immortal Man, the engaging enough Netflix film that expand on the beloved original baby series. He is working alone toward the camera. It's likely things for him to be the doing as the characters increasingly retreat into himself over the course of the show and cut himself off him from his family in the series' final able, only in the film picking up years after with the last saw Tommy and with the heroes of World War II now surviving as it's the backdrop. The main has become for the more like the ghost that continue to hunt him than he is in the cruel crime bros hunted him than he is the cruel crime self-surviving political we once knew. Luckily for us and the Immortal Man, Tommy has changed considerable, but the Murphy remains as the captive as ever in his the performance that the burned bright even as Al in this hit and the miss film is at the risk of the either filming out or force filming into the murky darkness. He slipped back into the character's spiffy shows and kept with the essay just as he the instilled him with a greater sense of the sadness, considering how much he did lose before now. This is no easy feat, and yet, as this film show, there is much more for the Tommy to lose. Though many of these losers feel like the rush way of the writing our characters that the ether did not return or that the show handle already pushed to the side long ago, they still managed to cut deep. Much of this is the due to Murphy driving each of these the loser greater impact as is the normally stock wishings being to the crumble. This the proof especially true in the regards to a surprising almost the anticlimactic yet still devastating loss that the Tommy is the directly responsible for. You can feel the weight that he carries with him in every step, just as you see a more sinister darkness behind his the eye. Tommy is a man Murphy makes usual full belief is the capable of the immense, brutally who at the same time is the deceptive drive to hold on his the better nature that is the continuous slipping through his figure. There are still times when the immortal man can feel stiff, and the lifeless is how it holds on this with some the painful clangs, explanations nearly taking you out of the whole things. But the Murphy brings all the necessary life in his the performance to ensure it holds together just as the already broken world around Tommy is the falling apart. The actor crave out moments of the grim grass in the trouble of his the life. Some of this classic Peaky Blinders with the story drawings largely from the real history included the particles alarming dangers of the fism. In this case, the film has the greater shake that the surrounded Operation Spearhead, a Nazi Germany scheme to flood the UK with the counterfeit banknote in the hope of the turning the tide of the war. The plot brings Tommy back from the remote home where he hidden away to the Birmingham as his son Doug, played by a refreshingly understand Barry Keoghan, is coming perilously too close to the not just repeating his sense of his the father, but the writing about even greater distinctions. At the same time, Tommy has been both forgotten by Nemi, resulting in a darkly comedic scenes in his the old bar and held up as an the almost mythic figure by the others when he the mercies back in or the horseback in a bittersweet well, the state return scenes, while the both of these teeth on the fan survive, it also raises more the complicated questions of the legacy and the memory, even as the film itself closer to some things like the cameo, the sequel to Breaking Bad, in how it feels less like a stand-alone experience than it does, and the extent epilogue scenes like these ensure you are still along for the ride with all that the Tommy Spot achieve and the immense harm the cost to theaters. Some things he attempting to recog within a bite he was writing there the some things legacy and the memory, even as the film itself took closer to some things like the Ali Camon, the sequel to Breaking Bad, in how it feels less like a stand-alone experience that is done and the extent epilogue scenes like these ensures you are still along for the ride with all that Tommy Sportley achieved and the immense harm he's the cost to others. Some things he attempting to direct within a book, the writing, there's something proudly sad to sing it all the reflected back on him in the Murphy precising Gaza. While this the completing answer to the how Tommy will be the remember if at all are not explored in as the much depth as you did hope for in the film, it still gives the experience a more theatrical, complex, and the target dimension. We see his son attempting to follow in the particles footstep while the Kangsons giving depth to the necessary layers to both a fnighting fingers and the also scar kid. One well started scene set to the green, chatting hunting puppets. Proof crashing in how it all comes together as young Tank is the broad faces to face with what the step cost of this film. When father and the son rejoin their the contractions is the awkward at the hiddling with the way They eat the whistles in the mud, providing another instant of the dark comedy just as it survives as a fitting statement for the film. Neither are they afraid of the rolling around in the mud, though the end of this won't be the trembling but the tragedy.